Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's time to continue work on the Imperial Guard display board. So off camera we made a couple of little changes. We had foam originally here as well as on the back here, but I decided I didn't want that, so we're going to cut that foam away using a utility knife to create a fighting shelf for more troops to be displayed. Now those areas are going to need kind of a retaining wall, so we're going to make some sandbags to fill that purpose. Now this is some Crayola air dry clay that I got at Michael's. Now it works really well for a lot of applications, but it needs to be a little bit warm in order to be fully moldable. So just kind of work it around with your hands a little, and then I'm going to roll it out into a kind of long strip that is roughly a 1/4 inch thick. Once that's rolled out, I'm going to use a sculpting tool to kind of trim this section down and then cut off pieces that are 3/4 inch in length. Alright, now let's zoom in and start shaping. So I'm going for a roughly dog biscuit kind of shape. This will make it a lot easier to mold them and place them on the board. And it kind of looks like the sandbags that you see in movies and the real world. So using the end of a small sculpting tool, I'm adding some little hash marks here to represent the stitches of the sandbag. Alright, so that's one down. Time to make another 12. So once the sandbags have been shaped and molded, it's time to place them on the board so that they can kind of get their final positioning. So they're really easy to mold and shape and place, but you can run into some issues where they don't quite want to stay where you place them. And if they topple over, that's fine. You've got plenty of time to remold them, reshape them. I like the idea that the guardsmen would rebuild this section with sandbags to add some fighting areas and some defensible positions where the building had been bombed out or damaged. So that's kind of what I'm going for here. And we're going to need more sandbags. So, popping in a couple of movies, I sat down and made so many more sandbags. It can get very time consuming, very tedious, so I just kind of put in a movie and just had at it. And watching a movie while doing this really made the time go by a little bit easier and just kind of made it a lot more fun. Now the clay does require a cure time, so 24 hours later the clay will be solidified and ready to use. So I had some of these fuel pipes laying around from the Imperial Guard fuel pipe terrain pieces, so I thought I'd use them to kind of add an extra industrial effect to the build. So we've got a pump, a single pipe, and a couple of fuel cells. Now I found this mesh at the dollar store that I thought we could use as some cargo netting. It's designed to kind of be a non-skid thing to put under a carpet. But you cut a couple of strips out of them, hang them off of the exposed rebar of the upper layer, and you've got a very, very passable rope ladder. So we're going to paint these latter sections up with a little bit of snakebite leather and Athonian camo shade. This is going to give it a nice little leathery rope grunge effect, and I think once it dries it'll really look the part. So while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and paint the piping and pump system. We're going to use a little bit of natural gray and metallic black to give it a little bit of a metallic undercoat. Then, using a little bit of metallic bronze, we're going to paint all of these little coupling sections just to give it a little bit of flair, help those areas stand out. Then we're going to use some metallic black to paint the broken sections of the plasma coils to represent that they don't have any active plasma, so they would be a dull, unpowered black. And while we have that color, we're going to paint some of these pipes and conduits on the side of the main pipeline. Using a bit of metallic blue, I started painting some of the plasma coils that would have energy coursing through them to kind of lend visual to the plasma effect. And now, using a bit of copper, we're going to add a little bit of detail, but nothing too crazy since these aren't the main focus of the build, so we don't need any crazy massive detail. And using a little bit of silver and deep red to paint over some of the wires and conduit pieces, we're ready to glue these down and secure the pipes in place. Now, it was pure luck that the feet to hold these in place lined up with the cross beams that I made for the flooring sections. I did not expect that, but I'm not going to complain about it because it worked great. Now, I wanted these power cells to kind of be outside of the generator because, you know, the idea that the building had been bombed out, maybe the power cells fell out of it, or the guardsmen are trying to recover them. So these cargo net ladders hang quite nicely off of the exposed rebar on the upper floors, so a quick hang to kind of get them in place, a little dab of glue, and they are solidly in place and not going to fall. Now, I ran into a slight problem with the sandbags. Normally, I don't have a huge problem gluing them back together once they've dried, because once they dry, they don't have the same cling as when they were kind of pliable and tacky, so they fall apart pretty easily. Now, there's two really easy ways to reattach all of the sandbags together. The first is what I'm doing here, which is take the sandbags apart and then glue them back down in the same order that they were in the first place, but if you forget which one goes where, you very quickly run into the issue of them not fitting together. The other way is do it in reverse. Pull one off, then glue it back down, then pull the next layer off, glue that back down, but it can get very interesting at times. So now we're going to go ahead and paint the sandbags all a uniform color. We're going to go with some Militarum green and Athonian camo shade. So in the grim dark future of the 41st millennium, the Astra Militarum is a massive, like, you can't even comprehend how many numbers are in the Imperial Guard, so some things would be the same no matter where you go. And I like the idea that sandbags are always going to be the same color across the entirety of the Imperium of Man. So we're doing a quick paint with Militarum green and Athonian camo shade to kind of give them a military green, grungy look to them. And once that paint is dry, we can go ahead and get ready to start gluing down the sandbags. So I made a couple extra sets of sandbags off camera for the upper floor, and I like the idea that they are going to have some fighting positions on the upper floors, but nothing too crazy since they already have some of the walls there. So these are just kind of for the exposed areas. And now to glue in the ones for the lower floor. And now using some tile grout, we're going to secure down the last of the sandbags. So I started out by putting a few globs of the grout down and tried using a brush, but that didn't really work. So switching back to the popsicle stick, I used that to kind of fill out and smooth down the grout to apply a roughly even layer to the surface that I was going to be using. Once I had a relatively even layer down, I took the sandbags and pressed them into the area just to kind of secure them in place. And once the sandbags were secured, I decided to use the grout to apply a full layer of ground cover to the entirety of the surface. And here we are with the ground cover applied. Please tune in next time where we finish out the display board. We're going to be doing a little bit more texturing and a little bit of flocking on the ground cover, and I hope to see you all then. Please hit that like button, subscribe for future content, comment in the comments section, let me know how I'm doing, and we will see you next episode.